Hey y'all, today I want to tell you guys a little bit about my nonprofit, David Circle. I've mentioned it a few times. I've also posted a brand story, but I think it's helpful mainly for me to be able to talk about what I see and what I'm trying to do. And I have to do a better job at that. Sometimes I don't have all the words or I don't have the perfect phrase, but I'm just gonna try to explain my thinking and, hope for the best. But in 2023, I founded a nonprofit by the name of David Circle. At this time, in August 2023, I was in a car accident, so I was off work for a while, and I was bored, honestly. And in that boredom, I ended up writing a business plan. And then I ended up getting the nonprofit. So be mindful of what you do when you're bored, because that's actually when God speaks to you. But God had gave me the name David Circle in a dream. I knew that I wanted to start a nonprofit. I had been working with small business owners at that point for a few years, and they had inspired me so much. And I knew I wanted a nonprofit, but I didn't have a name. And one night God gave me the name. He told me what color to make it, and I wrote it all down. So I wanted to have a nonprofit. Let me just back up a little bit. I've always had the heart to serve. I've always had the heart to serve. As early as I can remember, I've been serving people. Even thinking back to spending time with my grandma. I gave up every summer to spend with my grandmother up until the summer that she passed away, which was about 2012. So I've only been to summer camp once. I didn't get to go on summer trips and all of those things. I was at home with my grandma by choice because I love to serve her. I love to help her, and she needed me. Just in general, I've always been a relatively helpful person. And if I can, I will. And I also noticed that I had a unique journey throughout high school, throughout college, and then getting into my corporate role. I would often run into people who would say, "Oh, I wish my child was just like you," or "Can you talk to my child? I think they could learn something from you," whatever. And I just love to do it. I truly love to do it. I always tell God that if I could touch one person, like literally just one in my lifetime, and shift their focus on Him, then I've won. My purpose has been complete. And it's really important to have that heart posture when you're going into entrepreneurship, because that's my only goal. That's my only goal, is to introduce someone to Christ, or if they have been introduced to Christ, to reintroduce them and have them to shift their focus on Him. That's the only mission that I have in my life, in my business, in everything. And then, also thinking back to my childhood, my dad passed away when I was just about 2 years old. And it was really hard coming up, without my dad. I had to mature very, very quickly. As young as I can remember, I remember just wanting to do things on my own. I saw how much my mom was going through, and I did not want to be an additional burden or just, cause her to have to do anything more than what she was doing, because, she was going through enough. So I took on a lot of that stuff, and I matured very quickly. By the age of 6 or 7, I'm staying home by myself. I've always been self-efficient. I could get myself to school. I can get myself back home. Just kind of run it, cooking really if I needed to. I knew how to whip up, some tacos or something. I just tried my best to not be a bother to anyone, or to be a burden. Half the time, if I went and stayed at somebody's house, they could forget that I'm there, because I don't want to bother you. But that really translated to my education. And when I was in school, I just tried to make sure that I was the best student possible. I did not get in trouble at school. I got good grades at school. I respected my teachers. That was my way of, just doing the best that I can. And when my senior year came around, I knew I wanted to go to college. It wasn't really an option for me, but I knew that money would be a problem, because I didn't have tens of thousands of dollars to go to school, you know. And I remembered applying for a scholarship every single day. I took this coding class in high school, my senior year, and I remember in that class every single day I was applying and looking for scholarships. Every day I was going to the guidance office, looking online, working on my personal statement every day. No support. Like, no one was encouraging me to do this. This is what I did on my own. And to God be the glory, he allowed me to go to Tuskegee University and graduate from Tuskegee University. Hello? Like, that was nothing but God. And while I was at Tuskegee, I was presented with so many amazing opportunities that has molded me into who I am today. And that's essentially how I came up with David Circle, because I realized that, everybody doesn't have that drive, that self-motivation, intrinsic motivation, if we're being technical. The generic mission statement for David Circle is that David Circle is a transformative leadership development organization dedicated to providing early exposure to college readiness and professional development resources. Because I realized that when I was in college and I'm in the inroads and I'm with the Thurgood Marshall College Fund on all the professional development stuff, this is what kids need in high school. A lot of these kids won't reach that bridge. And working with students, I've come to find out that it's mainly just because they don't believe they can, or money. It's like, oh, I don't have the money. Do you believe? And that's where their faith comes in. I just want people to unlock their limitless potential. And I want people to fully step into the person that God has called them to be, boldly and aggressively, and play no games about it. But it only comes from exposure. Because I was exposed to different organizations and different corporations, I am who I am. I know what I like, I know what I don't like. But if these kids don't have that exposure, how can they know? They're being exposed to drugs and alcohol and guns and TikTok and this lavish luxury life, and most of that they'll never actually get their hands on. So I find it very important to expose these kids to things, to know what a professional black woman looks like. Every time I go to the school, the kids are just like, oh my goodness, like, I like your hair, I like this, I like that. Like, they just be so infatuated with me because they don't get to see stuff like this often. And it's just really sad. And even in the schools, the teachers are great, but these are teachers who've been teachers for 20 plus years. Their professional development is out the window. I mean, we have teachers who've been at the school 30 years teaching a resume class. You haven't had to do your resume because you've had the same job for 30 years. You haven't been in the bank. So there's like a huge gap, and there's a huge need, especially for students. But on the flip side, there's a desire for me to educate adults as well. I do work in finance, and just kind of backing up a little bit, I got into finance because of the hardships that I experienced as a kid. Money was tight, and it didn't have to be tight. I've learned, there were certain mistakes that were made that caused money to be tight, bills not to be paid, eviction notices to be handed out. And I noticed that something was wrong with it very, very early. And I dedicated my life to making sure that I don't ever have those hardships again. So the moment that an accounting class was presented to me in high school, I took it expeditiously. And I ended up being really good at it. And my teacher, Miss Barnhart, pulled me to the side and was like, Aaron, like, you're really good at this. And most people aren't that good at this. And this is something that you should really stick with. And honestly, that was my first time hearing that I was good at anything. Like I said earlier, I was a quiet kid. I stayed out the way. I didn't want to make any waves. Like, I don't want to make no noise. But she saw me. And that moment changed my life. It changed my life forever. So I'm so grateful that she encouraged me, and that experience is something that I try to carry with students as well, and be like, hey, like, you're really good at this, because sometimes, like, that's all they need. All they need is a little encouragement. Back on the financial tip, There is a lack of financial literacy within our community. And it's not that there's a lack of finances. It's more so the literacy. And when we think of financial literacy or just finances in general, we think of a number. We think of digits. And that's not what it is. Finances is here. Financial freedom is a mindset. You can live very comfortable and not be rich. And as a community, we have to be set free from that. And I don't know if it came from social media or from church or like whatever it came from, but we have to break that. Like, I have never chased a dollar. And I truly feel like that is why I am blessed, because I don't prioritize the dollar. I don't prioritize the dollar. I purposely took a job that paid me significantly less at my corporation just to be happy. I didn't care about the money. I cared about being happy. And that means something to God. Your heart posture brings you money. You change your heart and you change your mind. The Bible says to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And do not conform to the ways of the world. So you renew your mind. You fix your heart posture, and money and prosperity and wealth just begins to flow in and out of your heart. And I thank God for blessing me with a mind, a sound mind, and a sound heart, to where that's not anything that I chase or prioritize. And you can't do it, because money is the root of all evil. You can't chase the root of all evil. But money is very spiritual, and we prioritize it. And for a lot of us, money is our God. It truly is. Some of us won't leave certain situations because of money. But I always think about the scripture in the Bible where it says that God feeds the birds. They don't worry. So why should we? The birds don't have no job. They didn't go to school. They ain't did no chores. They ain't did nothing. But God makes sure that they eat every single day. And he does the same for us, but we don't trust him. We don't prioritize him over the money. It's a huge priority issue, and it spills into our life. There's some people where their financial situation will make them depressed. It'll make them suicidal. It'll just make them go crazy. And then some of us just make silly decisions. Instead of paying a bill, you'd rather get your hair done, you'd rather get your nails done, you'd rather buy the new pair of shoes. And it's a mindset. These are your priorities. And my goal overall is to expose who people are at their core. Because who you are at your core reflects in your financial situation. It reflects in your personal and professional development. It reflects in all things. And I've really tried to exercise this through Shark Tank exercises. I have a few videos on my page from some Shark Tank competitions I've done with David Circle. And the Shark Tank competitions, I grew to realize it was initially something that I partnered with the school on. Like, I was just judging at the school. But then I started to realize that it was more than just a Shark Tank competition. It was a professional development exercise for the students. A lot of times, this is the students' first time presenting in front of professionals. And then it's also the process of them having an idea and being able to articulate that and having people understand that. They're advocating for themselves, but they're also using their brains in all kinds of different ways. And it's important for schools to allow children to tap into that creative side. And I saw a real opportunity with that. For a few years, I brought students downtown to a corporation, and they would do the Shark Tank there. For a lot of them, it was their first time in a corporate building, their first time having to dress up business professional, their first time interacting with professionals. And it's a life-changing experience, and hopefully it's an experience that I pray they never forget. I actually just had a student that reached out to me from a Shark Tank I did in 2023. Like, it's been 3 years, and you're at a high school, and they're typically seniors at the time, so they should be like a junior in college right now. And like, you still remember me? You still remember that experience? Like, you still got questions and stuff? But just providing them with that kind of exposure and those kinds of opportunities makes my heart smile. Although they may not recognize it in the moment, years down the line, I pray that it's an experience that they always remember. And they remember how they felt when they were there. They remember what they saw. They remember, what they accomplished. Even if they don't win the Shark Tank competition, it's still a huge accomplishment to be able to do that, because a lot of adults wouldn't be able to do that. And we're talking like 16, 17, 18-year-olds. So that's something that I've been really proud of with David Circle. I've also given out scholarships for students. The primary criteria is for students to have overcome some sort of personal hardship. So I enjoy reading through their personal statements. I also built the AI chatbot. It's been in the works for a little over a year now, but I'm just one person. This is a one-person nonprofit, and I want to be everywhere at one time, but I can't. So I worked with a contractor to develop an AI chatbot, and this chatbot is essentially supposed to be me. And the idea is that students can come and ask this chatbot personal and professional development questions or college readiness questions, and it's like the response is coming from me. And the chatbot was designed to only answer questions as such. So if they try to get help with their homework or anything else, the chatbot will not respond to it, which makes it safe to use in schools. And I have did a pilot at a school, and it seems like they have used it here and there. It's a really cool tool. A lot of students, like I said earlier, their teachers just aren't really as sharp as they need to be. And I've also learned that these students cannot get a hold of their guidance counselor. Guidance counselors' caseloads are ginormous. So I created the chatbot for them to go to in times like that. And if they need to contact me, they can. I'm like always here to help. I am help, okay? Call me help. Hello? I'm just praying to God that he sends me some funders and some donors so that I can continue to do that. I've been so gracious to run the organization and not have to put a dime in on my own. I've done all of these things without, putting my own money in it. And I pray that God continues to bless David Circle so that I can continue to be a blessing to others. Because I don't want anything from it. And people always tell me, like, you should really charge for this. You should charge for it. And it's just like, no, I can't. Like, why would I charge the community I want to serve? Like, why would I charge you for something that belongs to you? I never charge. You charge the corporation. Hello, you charge Uncle Sam. You don't charge the community you're serving. Essentially, David Circle is a heart posture, and it's meant to expose your heart posture. And I just pray that one day it turns into something that I just can't imagine. I know that God wouldn't have given me this vision if it was nothing. And while I don't have it all figured out, and while, it's still in the early stages, I believe that something big will come from it. And even if it's just one person figuring something out about themselves, or they change the route that they were going down, like something as small, I'd consider it a win. I've also done like college readiness boot camps, and even during some of those, the parents and the students come, and both of them are equally as engaged because the students are learning things they've never seen before. The parents are learning things that they've never seen before, learning about different grants and scholarship opportunities and how FAFSA works and where to look for scholarships. Keep in mind, I went to school with $0. I did a video on it. Just providing them education, basic tools, tips, and tricks that might not solve the problem, but it might make them feel a little better, because it's important for you to make things digestible for people. That's why a lot of times I hate financial presentations, because most people always end up leaving feeling bad about their financial situation, and that's not how it's supposed to make you feel. It's supposed to make you feel encouraged. Like, people say it takes money to make money, which is true, but it also takes a good heart posture to make money. And if your heart's in the right place, money will come to you. But yeah, I pray that David Circle touches millions of people throughout the nation. My goal in the next 5 years is to be able to put a student through college, like top to bottom, or at least pay for 1 year of their education, like one full year. I would love to do that. I pray for David Circle. I pray for his future. I pray for his vision. And I know that God didn't give me this to let it sit here and just sit and wither and rot away. So if you have some time on your hands, I encourage you to write that business plan, especially if God has been speaking to you about it. Just do it. And if you need help, call me. You know, David Circle also sponsors LLCs and nonprofits. As a part of the Shark Tank, the students win sponsorship to establish their business entity of choice. So if you want to get that LLC started, let me know. David Circle will sponsor it. You want to start a nonprofit? Let me know. David Circle will sponsor it. You want to apply to get some sort of certification in the cost? Call us. We invest in people. And not because we want anything back, because we want you to succeed, and we want you to truly do what was in your heart. Honestly, this is just me rambling, and doing stuff like this actually helps me get more clarity. So thank you for letting me ramble. If you're interested in learning more about David Circle, I'm going to link some of our videos below and also our website. If you'd like to donate to David Circle, you can donate at www.davidcirclenfp.org/donate. I will also put the link below. I thank you for listening, and I just pray that this encourages someone to keep going, keep pushing their vision, maybe to video journal. Like, I don't have it all figured out, but I have an idea, and if you have an idea, like, that's really all you need. So I just pray and I encourage you to keep going, keep dreaming, and keep partnering with God, because with him, it's only up. Okay? But I love you guys, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.